What's up, everyone? ZZP Power Hour number 148 today. Coming in, we got Alex over there.
What's up, guys?
Boss Man Zoom. Been a minute since he's been on. As always, Tyler via ZZP, and we got
Randy, ZZP.
Randy O. Today we're talking about technical innovations in basically our industry. What we do, where we've come from, what we do now, the processes, the R&D. Zoom's been really big lately on shining some more light out into at least the Facebook community on what we do here. It's, I think one thing that doesn't get across well to customers, and what I really appreciate about this is we got a lot of people here doing a lot of things at all times, and we have 6-7 platforms, and they're all moving at once, and coming in nearly 6 years ago, things have changed, and things have changed, I'm sure, since the beginning. So we'll go over kind of what we do on that technical end, what we use, what we don't like that we still have to do, and kind of go from there. Zoom's acting bad.
He's just cold, man. Look at him. He's shivering up in there.
Got the hood up. So the biggest difference is we have ways of really accelerating how we do R&D now, right? So we don't have to wait on getting a sample from anywhere else. We can do a lot of what we do in house now, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that comes to mind. First of all is our 3D scanning capabilities, and then CAD going straight into 3D printing rather than samples, models from various manufacturers that we get raw parts from, and then we'll go into CNC and all that too, which is pretty much an industry standard. But the 3D scanner is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's been one of our biggest additions. Being able to design in CAD 1-to-1 scale to a highly accurate scan of a product.
Going down to half a millimeter and it being correct is ridiculous.
And not having to get just thinking of the air boxes, the most recent air boxes that we've worked on. Before, you would have to do the old type of CAD, some cardboard aided design, and piece some things together, and then take your measurements and send it off to the laser cutters. But now we can just scan right in there. You can design it. Watching Alex design those air boxes is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because you can scan the entire engine bay, see where you have room, what mounting points you have, and it takes a lot of guesswork out of it. And like Randy said, it really accelerates our process.
Yeah. And laser cutting companies, they don't want to do one. Hey, can you send me this one sample? They want you to commit to 2, 3, 4, 500 of something. They don't ever want to do one. Sometimes they won't even give you a sample unless you commit to getting the full work order from them. So if you got something scanned and then you do a 3D print, you can be pretty darn confident that the sample is going to fit exactly to the engine bay.
Yeah, and Randy's taken over the 3D scanning. I was doing some of that before, and then Ryan Derrick is our main 3D printer. And today Randy had him whip out some new retainers.
Yeah,
that we're working on
some retainers for our 1.4 stuff, just to model stuff up and.
Yeah, but the fact that it can do, what is it, 10 mil across, or however small those
I think the thinnest part of my print was 1.8 millimeters thick. That's crazy that we have a FDM printer, a resin printer that can go down to that level. If you even look at 5 years ago, that was space age technology, and now we just have one in the shop.
Yeah. And it's an entry level printer,
And don't get me wrong, there's no person I like to ride more about 3D printing and giving Ryan crap about it and put him under pressure, but he's been doing a great job recently. I know you've been helping him out, Randy. So that's been rapid prototyping. The 3D scanner, 3D printer has been a huge advantageous thing for us in development.
And not even the small parts, but the big stuff too. I mean, we were working on the CTS exhaust. We were able to scan the entire underside of the car, and you could build it and send it right over to the bender. I mean, the fact that we can take all of that and in a matter of a day go from this car is in, we've got bends bent up, Alex is jigging it together, and testing, seeing that it works is awesome. And that's all the production and R&D side. And where was I going? Nope.
Oh,
Brain's gone. It's gone.
Smooth,
Yep.
Smooth brain. And it's great too, because so ZZP as a company, when we want to work on, a new platform or something like that, realistically, back in the day, we would have to purchase one and get it in the door. But for the CTS stuff, there was a customer that wanted to get an exhaust done, and we were like, while it's here, we should scan some stuff, because then we don't have to buy a whole nother car if we don't really need to. It really speeds up our process of making cool parts, which is, we're all car people here. We don't get to make all the cool parts that we've ever wanted ever, but when we have the opportunity to make cool stuff, it's so cool as car folks. So
Cornelius, an Ion Redline Stealth. We had an Ion
stupid hood latch.
I know, we had an Ion in recently, and the way, realistically, the only way that we could get a larger heat exchanger in there, it would be to build a tubular crash bar, which then, you're talking going from a $200 or $300 heat exchanger to something that might be $1,000. And I looked at that Ion while I was in here, and there's just not a lot of room. So that's unfortunate, but it's something that still I would like to address eventually, but I don't know how quickly we're gonna get there.
We'll probably do the Fiero block off. Someone mentioned today before we do the red line heat exchanger, a little bit quicker
than that.
Which a lot of times to the audience, we don't. A lot of times it's surprising because we don't know what you want, and sometimes people want things that
we just can't do.
We can't do. It's not a viable product. And other times it's like, oh yeah, that'd be easy. Sure. Why didn't you say something sooner? And then we can do that. So
Zoom on your end, watching and being part of this whole thing from 2001 to now. What is your biggest take on where we've gained technologically, whether in R&D or even just in parts?
Honestly, to me, it's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same as the beginning, because when I started the company, I had these ideas of, I'm gonna go to comp and they're gonna make me a cam, and I'm gonna go here and they're gonna do this, and all the companies are like, so it's like, oh really? So I just have to modify my own thing to make it work, But I always had the idea that I was going to be expanding capabilities, and still do, right? And just today in a fab meeting, we were talking about getting laser
to cut our tubes, tube cutter,
which would attach to that robotic bender thing we got going, same manufacturer even. And so I just look at this journey as, I want to be able to do everything. We just can't. So you go all the way back, and it was like, guess what? Bought a welder. We can now we don't have to go down to Bob down at Muffler Man and use his MIG welder, and that was like this big step, and like, oh hey, we don't have to try to cut a tube with a jigsaw anymore. We got a bandsaw. And every step of the way, I get a little smile. It's a little milestone, but there isn't one specific thing. I remember getting our first lift. That was pretty big because I wasn't laying on the ground anymore, to work on the cars. Like, we're going to be able to do our work so fast with this lift. It's going to be unbelievable. And then going to a real compressor from like a Napa.
From a little pancake
thing, and it's like, it's not going to run out of air. You're going to be able to just whiz all day long with the air gun. So everything was a step. And, sometimes we try it, like, let's do our own powder coating. No, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I think we still have some of that stuff. But, sometimes there's stuff it's just not worth it to try and in mass.
Yeah, we can't do it to scale.
Yeah, to do things. And then other stuff there is. And I just look at it like, I just want to, I hate people telling me no. I hate being reliant on other companies to decide, how much something is going to cost or whether we can do it or whatever it is. And so I'm always just wanting to bring more and more and more in-house. And that's on the development side. is like, how can we develop faster? How can we develop more? And then on the other side is the testing. And it's like, how do we test faster? And that's been a thing too, you know? So I think I posted some videos about how we will build test cars. And the idea of a test car is, what are the minimum amount of parts on this car to be able to get the parts on and off the car to test the products. And if we have to cut off something that is you know, the car needs, cut it off. Like if that lets us, you know, just keep swapping back and forth. In the one vehicle, we don't have a windshield right now, right? Which
the drag ATS is like, you got to remove the engine, you got to remove anything. It's the best car to work on. There's no parts on it right now.
It's super easy. And I think that we will get more advanced in 3D printing. I feel like technology is just moving in that direction. And we'll continue to move there. So we're going to be able to do more advanced parts in the 3D printing. And I think we had a part that took 28 hours.
28 hours.
You know, and I think that will move to faster because not, I mean, it's cool. It's fast. We get to do our own thing, but that is more than a full day. You're waiting on this part. And sometimes the parts don't even come out right. So, and then you're like, oh, actually we lost power.
Yes.
And you can't restart the print. You
can't restart the print. So it's like, oh, well, we thought one full day and some, and now it's another day. And all that just adds up to where you want to just bang out, especially as we do a lot of different platforms, because sort of teaching the ZZP way, you do a lot of cross training. You know, we do a lot of meetings and everyone knows a little bit about what someone else is doing. It takes a long time to bring someone in that world, you know, and you know, Tyler, because it's like, oh, you've got to develop the coilovers and you've got to learn how to do these tunes and you've got to shadow this guy for this other thing. And it's so many hats that you have to wear.
For sure.
As well as we all like to stay connected to the customers. So if you stop talking to the customers and stop reading what they're saying,
you kind of lose that touch with them. And that's one thing that, like you just said, sometimes we don't know. And when you're not, and it can be so overwhelming. I'm in probably hundreds of Facebook groups, and you know, Facebook will do their algorithm, and one week you'll have all ELR stuff, or one week you'll have all Cobalt stuff, and you miss a lot. You miss a lot of stuff. So trying to keep in with those people is huge.
But it pisses me off dealing with companies where I'll get a product for, say, my car, or I'll be using my car, whatever it is I'm using in life. And I'm like, what kind of moron designed this? Like, who did this? And you know what it is? It's a bunch of guys who've been working too long in the company and not talking to the customers and not using their own products. And so they just get off on a tangent of like, oh, I know what would be cool. No, it wouldn't.
Just completely
That'd be awful. You're talking to somebody else in the company who thought it'd save you 50 cents to do this thing, but you made your product a pile of shit. And I know the audience knows what I'm talking about. How many things do you guys have that kind of suck in a way, where you're looking at this thing or this product or this section of your car and you're like, what were they thinking? And I don't want that to be in ZZP. So that's...
And it's definitely clear when you say that they, you know, automotive related, they may not have the car. They may not have ever installed said part. I mean, there are times here where we think we're done with the product, and we get to the install video, and I'm like,
oh, I know.
What the hell?
Oh, no,
this
what
sucks.
It's one of the reasons I love we have the install base and we have a couple of techs. Because in the back of my mind all the time, I'm like, if I don't make this right, I've got a guy coming over and he's shouting at me, I can't do this, I can't get my hand in there, I can't get this bolt off. So there's kind of that check in place that whatever we're designing is going to be installed by people in house, and they're going to ream you out if you don't do it. Right. So it's a healthy challenge.
Yeah, it's a nice marry between us. I would say, like, the engineer side of stuff and the mechanical folks outside. Because, like, I could take a part up to Chris, and Chris can look at it and be like, yeah, that's not going to work. And I'm like, tell me reasons why. So it's really, really, it just makes it so much quicker for us to, like, have that mistake then and not, you know, after we get 100.
Yeah, you send them out in the world, and then Joe Schmo comes up and he's like, I tried to install this and I can't. You know, and you know, mistakes happens, but I think that's where we've really grown in the last few years is getting those checks in place.
Absolutely.
You know, getting it in the hands of me or Randy or Tim or whomever that will actually put it on their car.
I'm gonna admit a ZZP failure here. This is like inside information. ZZP failure, and it's my biggest pet peeve in the company. Sometimes there will be we all are driving cars that are related to ZZP in some way, like every car in the parking lot, pretty much. You're not even allowed to park up front if you don't even have a ZZP platform car. No, that's true. So you know, you got enthusiasts. It makes sense to hire enthusiasts because you want people who love what they do and love the jobs and are friends with customers, stuff like that. My biggest pet peeve is we are a company that is car enthusiasts, driving cars, modding cars, building parts because we love changing things and making them better. And I'll be with an employee, talking to an employee, working on an employee car, and I'll be like, hey, why is that on your car? Why aren't you using our part? Oh, ours is a piece of shit. and that is the big, I'm ready to just murder people in the building when that happens. Like, seriously, like, and you didn't think to tell me or tell someone else. It's just like, you're just like, oh, you know, that's terrible. You didn't go to the engineer and say you made a piece of shit. Instead, you're just like, you know, I'm just going to use that one. Instead, it's like, you know, that's like literally defeats the entire purpose of why we exist.
Yeah, why is it even
and drive the cars we're modding and all this kind of stuff. You're gonna keep that a secret, and that can be tough because, you know, not everybody's as much of an asshole as me, so they don't want to, like, I don't know, they don't want to make someone feel bad, or they don't want to disrupt the process or whatever it is, because there's so many people, right? Like, if you're outsourcing pieces that are used to make something, or outsourcing the whole thing, or outsourcing the electronics, outsourcing the harness, having part of it built in house, modifying it when it gets here, bringing it through its QC, and, you know, someone doesn't say anything and you can't do anything about it. It's like when we first started having the when we first came out with the intercooler pumps, and our failure rate was way beyond what it should be, and I didn't find out about it until it was just a pile of intercooler pumps that we had replaced. Like, why is this? What is this big pile of intercooler? Oh yeah, they do this, that, whatever. Show me. It's like, really? Nobody? You're just shipping them? Nobody said anything. The customer has a problem, you just ship them a new one. Like, you didn't think, like, hey, maybe we should check this out. And I think Hickman found that problem. Where we had spec'd a piece of a cover,
and it was just a little too tall.
Everything went together, but then when it ran, you had a little bit of rubbing or something in there. And it was such a simple fix, you know, crazy simple fix to check that out. But yeah, like, that's frustrating. It's like, why, you know, anyway. That doesn't always happen. That's just probably the worst of it for me. That's kind of defeating as a boss. And then sometimes customers will be like, oh yeah, ZZP sucks. And it's frustrating. I don't want to suck. Right? Nobody wants to suck. I don't want my products to be crappy, and nobody here wants their product. And then when you find out that maybe something is, and you have to address it, that's tough. But we do our best. I know that we had an issue with the catch can at one point, and I think we sent out everyone who had bought our catch can new parts.
I think it was like 150 customers, and they all got a gift card, and we got them all the new parts. You know, no questions asked. And that's the stuff that, like, it sucks that we had to get to that point, that we didn't realize it in time. But also, I love that we're always quick to, hey, this was our bad. So here's a fix. Here's a little extra to you know. Thanks for sticking with us.
And that's a culture thing. You know, everybody here is empowered to take care of customers, to take care of issues, to take care of problems. Like, there's no one's losing commission because they didn't give you your warranty or something like that. Like, we genuinely want our products out there to be working, to be good, and, you know, that is the culture through here. Having said that, a little tip for you. Once in a while, someone will have some attitude, and there'll be a gray area, and you'll run into a customer service rep who maybe you feel like you were treated poorly. And maybe that rep is me because I'm an asshole. Right? There's a lot of people that work here. Don't feel bad about getting a second opinion. And there are times where we're like, well, why didn't you just send him a new part? Well, I don't know. It's like,
well, he was being an ass.
It's like, dude, it's $20. Like, just send him a new part. And we are people, and we are not business people. We're enthusiasts who love what we do and love who we work with and love the customers. But it's like I like to say this: who do you fight the most with? Generally, your family. Right?
Yeah, you're not fighting strangers.
Yeah. You tend to argue with the people that you're the closest to. So I don't take offense to customers, getting salty about certain situations because, they care about their cars. They're passionate about their cars. Yeah. We're passionate about what we're doing.
And if your car's down because of something, I get it. That's fine. If you're relying on that vehicle or you have an issue, you have to change something out.
We always talk about that, especially like when winter rolls around. Like, these cars and this culture is our lifeblood, and it's our hobby and our passion. And when you can't have that, and if something's broken and you didn't break it, then you're mad. You're pissed.
You are mad.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I'm pissed.
The timeline thing is an interesting one because we have this thing where it's like we can't we're developing a turbo right now. It's like I can't wait to get this thing to market. Desperate, but it's always that fine balance of how can we test it long enough in every condition we can imagine where the customer's going to test it in, and how can we develop something reliable, and then whenever we're getting something significant made, it's we have to commit to it. If we're getting something cost
tooling
or whatever,
fees,
tooling fees, it's a commitment on our end. So how do you walk that balance of reliability but getting something to the market as quickly as possible? And we have to try and imagine all the conditions that this thing's going to be stressful.
Well,
so we beat the life out of our cars here.
Which is great. You got to drive the cars like a-holes because
we do it.
People do it. And it might not be how you drive, but you got to think, all right, somebody's going to romp this clutch from $2,000 and just sidestep it. And we got to make sure it holds for that.
Somebody's going to go from 2,000 RPM in sixth and want to mat the throttle and just see what happens.
Like we have these talks about, there'll be these customers that find a fail point, right? And there'll be this talk inside of ZZP like, this has got to be the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Like you don't understand what we did to this product to test it and could not get it to fail. What are you doing? And we had a guy who just did repeated top speed runs, smashed on the brakes until he stopped, smashed on the accelerator till it went to hit the rev limiter at 140 or whatever it was, brakes. Where do you live that you can do this? Like, how are you not arrested by now? It's like, here's my scan. It's like, really? 12 times to top speed? Like, how?
You must have covered 100 miles in your scan.
It's like, we can't test that,
We don't have any highways straight and long enough here.
No.
Or the one we talk about, the loaf and jug.
Oh, yeah.
No, we tested this and like, well, loaf and jug only has 85 octane, but I thought it would be okay. And we're like, it would be if you didn't floor it. I only floored it for a second. Like, you put 85 octane in a turbo car, you turned it 2 PSI past what we told you to limit. It was just for just a little second. Just one little turn of the boost control. We're like, guys, we have a lot of talks. We have a lot of talks about how do we make it so the customer can't change
something
what we sent out. And it's really hard because most of our customers will be like, well, give me the secret. Like, just show me how to adjust it. And some of our customers are really, really technical and good. And those are the guys that need access to that, right? Because we learn from them sometimes or what things that they're doing. But most of the customers,
they just need to leave it as is.
We literally have, there's another turbo kit we're developing right now, and we can't get the boost low enough. Like, that is literally a problem. Like, we know customers are going to blow this thing up, but we're in struggle right now. We got to make it even lower, and these are just fun problems that have to work through.
Some of our development, you guys, like, if we want to put a turbo kit on a car, we want to develop a turbo kit, we can often develop that kit so fast it would blow your minds as customers. I mean, literally blow your minds how fast we can have a turbo running on a car if we put the team on. It will take us
a day.
months to figure out how to customer protect this thing to where we're like, okay, what if they put the wrong octane in? Okay, how do we make it so they can't turn up the boost? How do we make it so if they do turn up the boost, then it will undo their turning up the boost because they're gonna do this. And it's like, okay, how do we make it, this is in this market and we've got that a-hole copies all our stuff. How do we add a component that he can't do to do this? And it's like, well, that's going to make our kit cost $15 more. It literally does nothing except make it less copyable. Well, we gotta have to. We gotta have to. So then we go down that route. And it's like, well, someone's going to plug this in backwards. So how are they going to plug it in backwards? They will. They'll take a screwdriver. They'll pry out the pin. Oh, yeah, you guys had the wrong pin in there. And they'll pry it out, and they'll stick it on there. How do we make it so you can't turn it, you can't plug it in backwards, even if you, do whatever.
Even if you try.
Yeah. And that part of the development takes a lot longer than actually just getting something on the car and making boost.
Yeah.
Like we can do that. Like when we whipped that slingshot and we were just like, oh, let's just get something on there and test it.
Same day.
And it's so fast. But, we couldn't control the boost, and we got to figure out the harness, and then we got to build the turbo fold, and we got to figure out, can you install it? Like, where can you get your hands? So we got to move the turbo this way. And it's, the detail of the development is 95% for
sure.
Of the kit.
And going off what you said with the slingshot, that's one thing that, just in the time I've been modding cards, turbo technology has come so far. Yeah. Turbo technology, the way that, HP Tuners is great, the way that we can monitor everything. Being able to run a turbo with the wastegate wide open and still make too much boost is kind of an attribute to what we're working with now.
Yeah. It's a far cry from the HX35 days. Like, just everybody back in the day was like, I took an HX35 off a diesel, I put it on my Galant, and I'm like, it takes 5 business days to spool, but that sounds really cool.
And I'm sure that was a pain point, especially at the beginning of the 3800 development, was back in those days, turbo tech wasn't that great.
Well, but you had a big motor. Yeah. And it was pretty easy to make the power. My frustration with, I guess, is just the messaging, and we've been working on that a little bit, where people, ZZP just ordered a turbo from China and slapped it in their kit. Really, guys?
Yeah, they just happened to have the cobalt flange, and
people here would never go for that.
Yeah.
Like, nobody would go for that here. They'd be like, get this piece of shit off my desk. Or they would test it as a joke to compare it to something. We are testing compressor housings, compressor wheels, exhaust wheels, and we have multiple companies that have product they want us to test. Mm-hmm. And everyone says, oh, this is the best thing, whatever. Maybe it is. But maybe it's not on that application. That's the other thing. Is these get application specific.
Oh, yeah.
Boost specific. We got to test the back pressure, to see on a particular application, this turbo made more power, but what's the back pressure ratio? Because it's going to cause us there is so much testing that we do that, and I know this frustrates the audience sometimes, we have a lot, of versions. Of product,
and rolling changes.
Well, so you'll see the V1, the V2, the V3, the V4, but what you're not seeing is all the stuff we never released and all the running changes that sometimes we do right in the middle, where there's maybe 2 V2s because we found just a slight tweak, that we did. But what do? You can't test for 6 years because the market's gone.
Yeah.
So you test and you work with what you learned in the other markets, and then you come out with a product. And you're coming out with a product, but there's still testing going on because everybody's racing the cars here. What, we got 12 Sonics here or something like that? So
not only is the market gone in 6 years, then we get the people that are like, well, ZZP's keeping all the cool stuff for themselves. And we're like, we need to test
you want
this.
To sell this stuff?
Like, we want cool platform cars everywhere. We wouldn't just keep cool stuff for ourselves, but we have to test it before we give it to you, because then it just turns back.
To think that we would hold back products and not make money as a business is so silly.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we've had hundreds of these on the shelf, but we didn't want to give them to you guys.
I'm sure Craig would love us to stack up stuff in the warehouse that we never sell. That's my goal.
But like you were saying, it's a balance of how long do you test before you just let it out in the wild? Because we've made mistakes before, where we let something out and it didn't work, and we're like, we should have tested that longer, right? But you didn't know because you tested it this much and it was fine.
Or that part, the first one was perfect, and then they go to production, and like somebody was saying, no matter how specific you are in CNCing or whatever it may be, or QC, there's going to be a bad one.
A percentage.
Or a certain percentage of whatever.
Rate. Yeah, for sure.
And that's like the Z Series turbos. We've been working on those. We had the Borg Warner stuff for a long time, and then we came out with our own line. And at first, just like the intercooler pumps, the failure rate was too high. And we went back through, and Al was big on this, tearing apart center sections, figuring out, looking for failure points. We revised the bearings a couple times, and now they're nearly perfect. Like, so that's that kind of running change that we do. And, we would love to have 18 different size turbos available, but sometimes there's just there's no need to confuse the customer too. We like to offer those, this is what you need. Here's the recipe.
And you get to a point where the change is so incremental, it's not...
It's not even worth it to be like, this
the
is
needle
before,
much, especially if you're just driving this on the street as your daily driver and maybe not racing as much. Like, when are you going to see that peak efficiency or that peak change? It's not going to be most of the time.
Or the change in drivability too. There's a select group of customers who always want the most power no matter what. They just want that number. They don't care how it drives. But 90% of our customers, these are going on their dailies. This is something that they're driving every day. So, we were doing all that testing on the Z04. We're making a running change. We're testing different compressor wheels, turbine wheels, all that. Yeah, we might have seen 9 horsepower more on a certain specific setup, but that came with slower spool. And we know that 90% of our customers don't want that decrease in spool for that extra little bump. But the back pressure ratio testing on turbos has been huge.
We've upped that massively.
I mean, now we went
that's
from
to where the Z04 has a port in it for that.
Specifically, it's cast into the manifold for that. But I mean, you can throw whatever size turbo on you want, but if you're not monitoring that, we've on top of that, we've got EGT probes that we can put into manifolds, and it's pretty incredible. And the data that we get from that is really awesome. And like you said, engine platform specific, things change.
It's hard because you make assumptions that aren't true. And like when we went from Gen 1 cruise to Gen 2 cruise, and you're using the same turbo, and you're like, why does this feel so much better? And it ends up being the converter, right? So nothing changes on the boost side. It's that GM changed the torque converter setup, and it changed the way the turbo behaved. You can't know that before you go into designing it, and then you're like, all right, back to our R&D. Let's pull up the old turbo notes. Let's see if we want to do something different. And it takes time, and there's only about a dozen of us that mess around in the garage-ish area or whatever that talk about this stuff. So, and you've got a whole bunch of platforms and a whole bunch of products that everybody wants. How many hours can you give something? You either just don't come out with it at all, or you call it good at a certain amount of R&D and just wait for
feedback and
wait for and usually it'll be one of the people here racing their car. Oh yeah, I was road racing and I needed to spool 400 RPM quicker.
Yeah.
And maybe I am like, nope, not spending the time on it. And then they'll just after hours just go in and work on their own car. And they'll be like, oh, that turned out sweet. I guess we're selling it now.
It is funny, even when, like, if we bring an idea to Zoom and he's just like, no, we're like, I'm going to do it after hours. Let's try and see.
All right, off the clock. I get it.
Okay, off the clock. Got it.
And sometimes those things are like, hey, I did this, and it's really good. It's really like we should do this.
We should try this. Generac turbo. Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
So, random side note, Tim Beek was telling us that a lot of the Generac generators are the 420A engines out of the old Mitsubishi Eclipses.
Really?
Yeah, just NA 420s.
Well, that's the thing. I was in, before I came to ZZP, I worked on like industrial sized things. We did a lot of big forklifts. The real small, like 5K forklifts, have 4G63s in them. If you have like an old Mitsubishi or old Caterpillar,
Really?
4G63s. It's terrible.
Someone earlier in the chat, I think it was Brian, he asked about ADSV in a cooler. We're literally working on that stuff right now. So we're figuring out, we have a couple of cool ideas about potential for how we can increase cooling potential in that car. So.
The downside right now is it is quite possibly single digits during the day.
Yeah.
So intercooling testing, it's
cold out.
It's not as good as the summer.
But we are working. We're focusing on that platform this year, so we're looking to bring.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff.
Oh, you know what? We have probably talked about and released the least amount based on how much R&D we're doing.
Oh yeah,
ATS.
oh absolutely.
We have the audience. You would crap if you knew some of the things that we have in the building, on the dyno, in development, working on.
We have cool enough stuff that I'm thinking about buying ATSV. So like when you're like, man, I just want to drop $30,000 on a car really quick. Just making cool
we're
stuff.
quite confident that we have the most advanced stuff in the market, in the world, in that platform. We want to surprise some people, so we're keeping some of our cards close. But anyone who has run some of the parts, like what are those?
Our BFIs,
the turbo inlets.
Yeah,
turbo inlets.
You see the quality of that product, the refinement of that product, how well it works. That's just a little. That's just a little piece of a very large. Just like 1% of just some wickedly cool stuff that we have going on.
And I mean, we released a picture of our setup for doing engine testing.
The one that we rendered in a video game.
The customer said we made a render image.
I went home that night. I was like, people were really saying that.
I mean, that's cool, I suppose.
AI is pretty good, but I don't know if they can get that specific. But one of the things that makes me most excited about the ATSV is it's going back against Scott. And I wasn't here for the intense days.
But those were rough. It was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To talk about those inlets on the ATSV, I mean, what's cool is as we have progressed, some of the companies that we partner with also have progressed. So like our casting company. You receive these things, you're like, these are freaking beautiful.
So
I mean, the
good.
quality is phenomenal on our castings now.
Better than OEM casting stuff. And they're doing it for pennies on the dollar, trying to get it cheapest. But like, man, some of our cast stuff is so good now.
Yeah. We have come a long ways in our ability to cast product. Get that product done. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
The stuff that we'll be coming out with, which some of that's ATSV too. What Matt has in store with.
And whenever Matt gets excited and gets into a project,
but I don't know if we've ever gone two separate all outs at the same time. Sort of separate.
I don't think so.
Like this is gonna be amazing, but we're gonna go a completely different route over here, and I wonder what's gonna be on top. So we'll see.
Exciting.
Yeah, we have another LTG potential fix we're about to test. This will be,
that's been a gem.
if this fails, this will be the third time where we were sure we got it and it failed. But I am confident this third time's the charm.
Every time we've been on the dyno, see Zoom come out, he's got his hood on, and you're like, oh, the boss man's coming. And he's looking, and I'm like,
nothing.
No change again. Like, okay,
So
and he
frustrating.
just walks out. He just leaves.
It's a little disheartening. Just kind of feel like you're beating a dead horse, but
I personally have never worked as hard and long with failures.
Yeah.
Just repeated failures as that platform of trying to figure out, because all the platforms are the same, right? Everyone gets a new car, you can't mod it, it barely makes extra power, you add some mods, you run into problems. Oh, we'll never be able to mod the 3800, you can't even run a 325 pulley. This thing's never running faster than 14s, you know? And yeah, you just make your way down. And then with the Ecotech, with the LSJs, and I was like, these motors are junk.
They're useless.
They're glass. Yeah. This is just pure glass. You can't mod an LSJ, right? And now,
now like an unopened LSJ 500 wheel car.
Yeah. So, and I just thought the LTG would follow fairly easy in those footsteps, and thus far it has not. But that's what we do. It's going to be. We're going to need a victory. Champagne wrap, something.
Champagne shower.
Like, if you guys saw all of our dyno charts, and then we told you what we did, and then you're like, you're just showing us a mirrored image. They're exactly the same. You didn't change your parts. I'm like, no, we've had the engine in and out. We've changed this, we've changed that, and nothing changes anything.
And it's even worse, too, because you put the LNF next to the LTG, and you're like, it's the same. We should be able to add this recipe to this. It'll be great.
And
failure.
And
fail.
But on the technical aspect, our new dyno, great.
Yeah.
You know, it first of all, just the location, having it
Oh,
in the back lot is phenomenal. But you know, the added inputs that we have, the software,
there's
all
a lot of auxiliary inputs.
All-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive too. Yeah.
I mean, and selfishly, we can all hear it from the front office, so that's pretty cool.
Is it like 8 inputs that we have now?
Yeah,
I think it's 8 auxiliary inputs.
But we're going to have like a big trunk line going around to the engine bay, and you can basically plug in whatever you want. It's,
it is pretty
really
sick.
cool.
Yeah.
Lower 3800 poly mounts. What, are we out of stock on those or something?
Yeah, so those were an old Scott made product, but we have one on a car right now, and I think it's approved. I don't want to say for sure, but they're in the work, chunkier mango. So yeah, those are down the pipeline.
Currently in testing.
We actually stumbled on several 3800 mods lately. We were working on timing stuff today in the 3800. That's kind of odd, right? Sort of bringing up some old stuff.
I think that's the beauty of platforms. As you continue to drive them for a while, you know, I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and they're like, I don't understand what else we can make or what else.
Yeah,
but the longer
we've
we
done it
drive them, stuff comes up.
Yep.
Oh, this manufacturer makes this part like the timing chain, but the pins aren't pinned over, or you know, there's an issue, or what? Why haven't we done that?
A lot of times we'll be in a different platform and we'll solve a problem or develop a part and realize we can port it backwards into
all the platforms.
Yeah. And that's I think that's kind of how we got on the timing chain setup in the
because it was one of those things that you guys had always done the recipe from someone else. You know, like, oh, that's what you got to do. Deal with it. That's all you got. And then, you know, after so long, and we've made great jumps in, especially the Ecotech timing chain guide. I mean, that thing, Steve can't pump those out of the CNC fast enough. Yeah. Like, we have sold, I think, over 500 of those in less than a year. Like, they're just flying off the shelves. So we're like, oh, well.
Good part.
Yep. Pass it down.
Material was great. Let's apply this to others. Preston Bornelli too. That's what I liked here. I'm desperately trying to grow that platform this year. We've got some parts testing right now.
Bobby B, send me an email, and I will hunt it down.
So it
sounds like a check valve.
Sounds like either a check valve problem, or I mean, you could have excessive crankcase pressure. Unfortunately, the LTG engine, as we were just talking about, you know, has a tendency to drop a ringland. So if you haven't run a compression test, you can get a kit from AutoZone for free. You just rent it for the day or whatever. Good safeguard. Just check out your engine health. If that's all good, we'll look into it. Like Zoom said.
Send pictures, a lot of pictures under your hood, so we can see the hose routing, both of our systems and the other systems.
Good pictures as well.
It's very hard to diag a PCV vacuum boost kind of issue without seeing all the pictures underneath the hood.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think I've ever seen an LTG blow the dipstick out. So
I haven't heard, unless you ring gland failure or something like that. That would be different.
Could be.
But yeah, we'll help you out for sure.
The F-35, we get an unbelievable number of people coming at us for that, and that's really just on resources. We don't have a guy who works on transmissions, and we don't have the resources to train an existing tech who's got 10 items deep to work on that. It is on the wish list for us. So if we get the opportunity to hire a trans guy, that would do that.
We just saw just earlier about someone asking about it's right there. Someone find me a 1-inch trans chain, and we were talking earlier about that project.
So I was the 3800 market stopped at when the turbos came out because you couldn't hold the transmissions together, and the solutions were like $5,000 transmissions, and they still weren't perfect. So you spend all this money, it's too much money, and so then we were working on it. We spent $100,000. Got about 3/4 of the way through development on what I thought was going to be a success. And the guy we had here went back to running. He had his own company. He shut it down. We hired him. He was heading that development up. We were about 3/4 of the way through. And then he left to go back to his company. And where we were at with that, God, we tried so many things. We did 1-inch chains. That was $60,000 in the scrap bin. We didn't understand how much precision was needed in the gears. Yeah. So we had basically a cheaper company make us gears. They looked perfect, but gears off a little bit, big problems. And then the pins in the chain. The chain was perfect. The links were perfect, and we didn't realize the pins had to be a hardened steel, and they weren't. So the chains would stretch, and that was a problem. And 1-inch chains, we weren't able to get made. Even if we could, we'd have a gear issue. Then you also had a 7/8 issue. Those chains are super hard to get. So it's it's not just, it's money, it's problems, it's development, it's super hard. And then I came up with a solution that was two solutions. One was this advanced guide system that held the factory chains onto the gears.
Because that's the problem is when the chain stretches, it
jumps gears. And so that was one solution. And at the same time, we were working on a solution that allowed you, instead of running dual 3/8 chains, it allowed you to run dual 1/2-inch chains. And that required spacing. And actually, to tell you how far back that idea goes, that idea started before there was such things as metal gaskets. The gaskets were still paper in the transmissions, and that was a huge fail point when
because you couldn't stack a metal.
You couldn't stack the paper gaskets. And then when they came out with the steel gaskets, which is what we had talked about developing, but at that time I think we were dealing with Cometic and it's terrible. But but we ended up stopping on that. And so right now we've got this wish list of 3800 transmissions. And always improving the F40 kit, the F35, huge, tons of calls for that.
Man,
we also talked about we got a spark in the air.
And Tim Spark.
Tim Spark. And I don't know what transmission that is.
It's baby. It's a baby trans.
It's a weird. It's not even a get rag number. I don't think. I'd have to look it up.
But apparently in that market, it's a big problem.
Oh huge and they're enormously expensive.
If you try to get one aftermarket, it's like a $3,000 transmission. Like
for a used OEM transmission for a car that makes 89 horsepower. But
yeah,
that's one point that like, but it's so hard because a transmission project sucks so many resources from all the other areas, and
we need an employee who has some transmission experience. We've tried to bring in a few. We've gotten close. We were in negotiations actually with Dave Norris for quite a while. That was years back though. But yeah, we never were able to put something together. So out in the audience, move to Grand Rapids if you're ready to work on transmissions and join the team.
It's great except for the snow, but
Yeah, the snow. It's not as bad as everybody.
I love
told
that you
me
get
it
4
was
seasons
gonna be,
here.
yeah.
That's pretty.
I do like the 4 seasons.
I like the 4 seasons.
It is nice.
Well, we are taking a company trip to Dominican Republic in a week and a half.
That's true.
That's going to be warm.
I'm excited for some sun.
Hyatt Zalara in Punta Cana.
Some umbrella drinks.
Oh, yeah.
What about 4040? 44. So the 2224 and the HHRSS was a 4045, which I don't really think there was ever any aftermarket support for that trans. Even GM went to the 4065 in that platform.
It just didn't make sense at the time for GM, I suppose. Like,
I don't know.
Everybody went over the 65E later on anyway, so.
Yeah, Gordon, the biggest issue with the F-35 is the actual disassembly and reassembly.
Requires specialized tooling.
Specialized tools. It has so many specific tolerance press fit bearings, and it's just not something like for the price that you could have an F-35 rebuilt, you could buy an F-40 conversion kit, and then you'd have another gear and a stronger trans, and like it. So that's part of what we deal with. But
that's the thing too. Even rebuilt, like a fully rebuilt F-35, never feels as good as an F-40 does, anyway.
No,
like,
you put a
0
mile.
feel crunchy from mile 0. You get an F-40 car and you go, and it just right into gear every time.
Flies between 3 and 4. It's great.
Working on an electronic posi for the V8 stuff. Right, a V8 electronic posi in like the Camaros and stuff like that. It's on the radar. It's on the radar. It's one of those things. We don't have the right person for it, but few of us are exploring that.
Yeah, and to what Zoom said earlier too, the amount of things that we work on that we don't talk about and don't put out there. Like,
oh my god,
just the random off the wall projects in the R&D meeting where it's like, all right, this is what we're doing. But yeah, Connor, I've had good F-35s, I've had bad F-35s. I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason other than torque. Torque kills them.
That's the torque spike of the KO4 cars that really destroys that input shaft bearing on the F-35s.
Well, we're looking at about 7 minutes left. If anybody else has any questions in there, I guess let's go around the room and say what has been your favorite project that we've done here or that you've worked on. And we'll start with Alex.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna need 30 seconds to think about this. I think
my favorite one of them that I can remember, I'm probably going to think of a lot, but back in the day when I did the intercooler for the 3800, and I remember my first test drive with my temperature probes, thinking the probes might be broken because it worked so good. I mean, it was all rigged up and sloppy looking, but held together with RTV, but it worked, and it was amazing. And I remember calling Matt. It's like, you're not going to believe this. And that was a really, really good feeling, just because it's not often you get something that works that good on your first kind of go at it attempt.
And especially because it was another one of those things where everyone said you were an idiot for doing what you were doing. And then you're like,
that makes it even better.
Look what this idiot did.
Well, that felt good.
Okay, I'll go 3.
All right,
quick.
go ahead.
ATS-V big single turbo.
Yep.
When we put that on the dyno, I turned the boost dial once, and Matt popped his head out the window. He's like, "We just made another 60 wheel horsepower," and just seeing that kid, like, well, every time you turn that dial, there's another 60, there's another 80, there's another 40, like, so that was fun. And then the equalizer, that was pretty special.
Yeah.
And then ADS-V catback. The first, like, they sat. Everyone knows that ADS-V rasp when they fire up, and
that's when we knew how talented you were.
Yeah.
We had been working on a version of that equalizer for, I think, years, and you came in and
we tried
did
some goofy
something
stuff before
that none of us were able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on Alex.
The first time with the big old loop-de-loop that you had put
and
under
Duke
there.
posted pictures online. I'm like, whoa, what's going on right now? What's going on?
But the first time you pulled out onto 28th Street, and we all just sat there in the parking lot like,
what was that noise?
Everyone wanted a 3800.
Yep.
I think the equalizer might be up there for me as well. But selfishly, coilover development was great, but I think Z04 on the Sonic and the 1.4s was the biggest. Like, it went from a car that was like, yeah, it's kind of fun, to then we came out to the Z04 and Al and I took it to the track, and when we ran that 12.0, it was like, okay, all right, this thing is properly quick now.
Yep, I think that's probably one of mine too. Like, just being part of that whole Z04 thing. Even when
you were the first customer.
Yeah, I was a customer at that time, and like, I was like, first time I felt an actual power number out of the car. I was like, this is what the car should have came with.
Yeah,
like this was the perfect upgrade. And right behind that is, I'm so glad that I finally got HV4 stuff, because man, modeling organic shapes or very roundy shapes in Fusion is terrible. My goodness. And I'm really hoping we can have some good tests on that next week. So
and on the technical aspect, sometimes it's got to go back to non-technical stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you literally out of foam.
You literally poured expanding foam
Yep.
into an intake manifold to make your prototype.
But that's also something we've been working on for what?
Years.
3 years? 4 years? That I was like, I'm going to need to get this done.
So many different ideas on that. Yeah.
So we'll see about that next week, hopefully.
We'll see. Yeah, Dan said we are car guys. We're all idiots. He's not wrong.
To a certain level, yes.
Yep. Chunky or Mango, if you're having trouble with your rear manifold, maybe you should reach out to Bo. He's taken off a lot of those.
Soak it and
40
or
heat. I don't know. Man, I remember doing the plugs the first time on Erica's. She had a lacrosse, and I was doing the plugs on that rear bank, and I'm knees on the intake manifold. I'm like, who designed this?
What happened?
It's just so dumb.
Yeah.
So yeah, taking off that rear manifold is not fun.
It is not.
But a couple minutes left. Go around the room. What are we doing this weekend?
Oh, hopefully as little as possible. I think we're gonna just do movies tonight, hang out, probably go try to get stuck in the snow in the Encore again.
Nice.
It's a good time. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I can get some time on my sim rig this weekend and do some track racing, because it's too cold outside to do that.
Yep.
But that's about it, hopefully.
Cool. I got to press some cabs out of some control arms tonight, and then working on the base model Cobalt this weekend. Randy's wife Katie wants to go sledding, so maybe we'll go sledding this weekend.
Yeah, we'll probably do sledding too.
And looking forward to some 40s next week. Even though it's going to be slow,
he's talking about temperatures, not...
It's going to be...
No.
Not what I got here.
My daughter Lux is waiting at home for me with my girlfriend Ashley, and we're going to probably... They love to make messes of food projects. Dad, look at these cupcakes I made. Why are they green?
They're green, and why are some of them up there?
Yeah. Why is the fridge? What's all this brown sauce all over the fridge? There's always melted chocolate. Everything melted chocolate.
Why are your hands always sticky?
It's like, come on, Lux. So yeah, and Tessa might be there too. So that's Ashley's daughter.
Cool. And we got to start packing.
And you know what? I should start packing for DR.
Yeah.
I got to try on some clothes.
I know.
Our theme, some Amazon theme clothes that we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you,
Yeah,
Ash?
I'm also going to be laying out the theme clothes this weekend. We've done some shopping recently, and then we're in kind of a house renovation stage right now. We've just got a new headboard for the guest bed, and I don't know, we're just making it a little bit nicer.
Okay.
And I have a
fun.
little 1-year-old.
Yep.
The weekend
Chuck.
is the
Good old Chuck.
It's not happy about Chuck, but
making messes.
young Prince Charles. I'll be hanging out with that guy this weekend. So.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Shout out to everybody who joined in the chat. We love having you guys here. Catch us next week for number 149.
Yep.
See ya.
Later.
Peace.
Peace.